Johnny Meyer's body jerked as the shuttle hit the atmosphere of an unknown planet, and then he was tossed like a ragdoll in the cockpit. His console flashed a warning in red, then died, as the ship plummeted through the sky with all the grace of a brick. "Shit, shit, shit!" he grunted, pulling on the emergency straps in a desperate attempt to stay conscious. But it was no use. The world outside his viewport was a blur of flashes, and then, nothing. When Johnny finally came to, he was on the ground, half sunk in soft alien soil that smelled faintly of rot and something floral. He groaned as his head throbbed and his body screamed for a break. The shuttle was wrecked, barely more than a crumpled metal shell scattered across a small, rocky plain. A loud screech of a creature echoed in the distance, sending a chill down his spine. "God, what the hell kind of planet is this?" Johnny muttered, dragging himself to his feet. His suit had sustained damage, and his brain was still catching up to reality. Johnny wiped his brow, wincing as his fingers brushed against the cold metal of his communicator. The screen flickered on. "What do I do now?" He tried contacting Earth. No signal. He was alone, lost in the middle of nowhere, on a planet filled with things that could probably eat him for breakfast. With a sigh, he threw his hands up. "Well, guess it's survival of the fittest time, huh?" Then, as if fate had a cruel sense of humor, Johnny heard a soft growl behind him. "Oh!" Johnny muttered under his breath, turning slowly. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. Standing before him was a creature, tall, humanoid, with greenish-blue skin that shimmered under the twin suns of the planet. It had a pair of black, jagged horns protruding from its forehead, sharp fangs that could easily rip through bone, and the most absurdly full chest he had ever seen. A queen, perhaps? Its eyes, alien and intense, locked onto him with the focus of a predator spotting its prey. "Oh, crap," Johnny said, taking a few cautious steps back. I can explain." The creature's lips curled into a dangerous smile, revealing more razor-sharp teeth. "You are a human," it rasped in a language Johnny barely recognized. "You are delicious." Johnny's gut twisted. "Right. Delicious. But look, maybe you don't want to eat me, huh? I'm not that kind of snack. I'm more of a get-to-know-me kind of guy, you know?" The creature blinked at him, a confused expression flickering in her alien eyes. "Get to know you?" Her voice held a note of curiosity. She was clearly taken aback by the human's audacity. Johnny, seizing the opportunity to recover from his immediate panic, straightened up and shot her a confident grin. "Yeah, I mean, why settle for just a quick bite when you can enjoy the full experience, right?" She tilted her head, clearly not understanding his words, but he could see the shift in her posture. Intrigue. Curiosity. Her eyes softened, and for a moment, Johnny thought he might just have a chance to talk his way out of this. "All right, look. I'm here on official diplomatic business," he continued, trying to sound as convincing as possible. "I come from a far-off planet, Earth, and well, maybe this isn't the best first impression. But trust me, I'm more than just a snack. I'm a delight." He flashed her another grin. "You ever tried a good old Earth pizza? No? Well, it's like comfort food. You'll never look at your dinner the same way again." She stared at him for a long moment, and Johnny's mind scrambled for more ridiculous lines to keep her engaged. His humor, he realized, was probably the only thing that could save him from becoming her next meal. "Or maybe," he continued, "you like conversation? I'm an excellent conversationalist. You know, I've been told I'm delightful company. Just ask my exes." The creature raised an eyebrow. She was trying to process what Johnny had said, but she was clearly thrown off. He had done something she didn't expect. Instead of begging for mercy, he was, what? Flirting with her? Johnny felt a weird, almost perverse sense of triumph as he continued his pitch, leaning into the absurdity of it all. "I'm great at, I don't know, wine pairings. I can show you how to make the perfect human soufflé. I'm practically a chef." He snapped his fingers as if to emphasize the point. The creature's expression was a mix of confusion and mild amusement now. She was standing, arms crossed, seemingly intrigued. You speak of food? She asked slowly, clearly struggling to understand his ridiculous rambling. Yeah, Johnny said, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Food, but also fun. You see, us humans, we're all about the experience. What's a meal without a little spice, right? The alien's lips parted slightly, as if she were debating the merits of his words. She tilted her head to the side, considering him. You are strange, she said finally. But you speak of pleasure? Johnny laughed nervously. Oh, yeah? Definitely. Pleasure's my middle name. Johnny Pleasure Myers, at your service. He gave an exaggerated bow, though the line between desperation and flirtation was getting thinner by the second. For a long moment she said nothing, her alien eyes studying him with an almost predatory hunger. But this time, it wasn't directed at his body. Johnny was starting to realize that this was not the situation he had expected when he first crash-landed. This wasn't an alien trying to kill him. It was an alien who had no idea what to do with him. Finally, she took a step closer, towering over him. You are an amusing human, she said. But I still feel hunger. Johnny's pulse quickened, but he refused to show it. Instead, he gave her a sly smile. Well, you know what they say. The best meals are the ones you've got to work for. There was a long pause, and Johnny realized he might just have her. You are not the meal I expected, she said slowly, her voice thick with thought. But I am intrigued. Her expression shifted again, and Johnny could tell she was starting to get caught up in this strange game he was playing. Tell me more about this. Human pleasure. Johnny couldn't help but grin. He was in. Johnny stared at the creature, blinking rapidly as his brain struggled to process what he was seeing. The alien stood tall, over 7 feet, with glistening blue skin that shimmered in the twin suns above. Its eyes were large, black, and unblinking, giving off a sense of predatory focus. The sharp claws on its hands flexed, and it exhaled, sending a cloud of pheromones into the air that made Johnny's head spin. It wasn't an animal, and it definitely wasn't a human. Well, this is awkward, Johnny muttered, his eyes darting for an escape route. There was none. The alien's mouth curled into something like a grin, but with the fangs visible, it was more unsettling than inviting. You are human? It asked, its voice smooth, but laced with something darker. Johnny raised an eyebrow. Wow, you can talk. That's impressive. I'm assuming that means we're not dealing with giant space lizards here. He forced a nervous chuckle, trying to hide his panic. He couldn't let this thing see him sweat. The alien's grin widened, showing even more teeth. I am Queen Zara, ruler of this world. You are the first human I've encountered. I'd hoped for something more appetizing. Johnny blinked, his blood turning to ice. Wait, what? Oh, yes, Zara continued, her tone almost playful. You see, your kind is quite the delicacy in my culture. We have evolved to consume human flesh, and your unique biology has long been desired. Johnny froze. His heart slammed against his chest. Was this some kind of joke? So you want to eat me? He laughed nervously, hoping his voice wasn't cracking. You do realize that's not exactly my idea of a good time, right? Zara's expression didn't change, but there was something almost amused in her gaze. It is not your opinion that matters, human. It is nature. And nature dictates that I, as queen, must devour you. It is tradition. Tradition? Johnny scratched his head, still in disbelief. Lady, this isn't the kind of first date I'm used to. There was a beat of silence, then Johnny realized what he said, and quickly added. Look, I'm flattered, really, but I'm more of a Netflix and chill kind of guy, not eating me for dinner. Zara's lips curled into a smirk, though her eyes never left him. So you are not afraid? Afraid? Johnny scoffed, though his heart was still racing. Not of you. Of getting eaten? Sure, that's a little concerning, but hey, if you're into it, I can give you some pointers on how to spice things up. Earth is all about variety, you know? Zara tilted her head, studying him carefully, the air thick with pheromones. I have heard of your strange rituals. But you do not seem to understand. You are in my domain. I could tear you apart with one strike, human. Yet you offer only words? Johnny spread his arms, letting out a breath. Hey, I'm just saying, you don't have to rush into anything. Maybe we could, I don't know, get to know each other first? See if we're compatible? He gave her a smile, hoping it looked confident. She blinked, clearly confused. Compatible? Yeah, you know, Johnny said, adjusting his collar as if they were about to step into a nightclub. Like, maybe we could have dinner first. Maybe a drink? Get a little casual, like, explore some common ground? Zara took a step forward, her clawed feet making a soft scraping sound against the ground. And why would I spend time with you when I can consume you immediately? Johnny leaned in slightly, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Because, let's be honest, you don't really want to eat me. You want to devour me, right? You know, like metaphorically. It's an earth thing, but I think you'll get the hang of it. He winked, his grin mischievous. Zara's eyes narrowed. Explain this metaphor to me. What do you mean? Johnny took a deep breath, steeling himself as he attempted the most ludicrous thing he'd ever done in his life. Okay, picture this, you and me, we skip the whole eating part, right? Instead, we have a little fun. You and me, exploring each other, getting intimate, not with your teeth, but with your, curiosity. I could show you a whole new side of the human experience. I'm talking quality time, not just a quick snack. There was an odd silence that stretched between them, like the entire planet was holding its breath. Johnny could practically hear his own heartbeat thumping in his ears. Zara seemed to consider this for a moment. You think I would want this intimacy with you instead of feasting on your flesh? Look, Johnny said, scratching the back of his head. You've been eyeing me like a hungry tiger, right? But maybe, just maybe, instead of devouring me, you could indulge in something a little more indulgent? He gave her a coy smile. Trust me, it'll be a lot more satisfying than just chewing on me. Zara's eyes flicked over him again, as if trying to process what he was saying. You humans are strange. Hey, I get that a lot, Johnny replied, throwing his hands up. But I promise you, this isn't a meal you want to miss out on. A queen like you deserves to be treated well, don't you think? Zara's lips parted as if she was about to respond, but she hesitated, her gaze lingering on him a moment longer. Her claws twitched. And what would this indulgence involve? Johnny gave her a wink. Oh, you'll see. I'm full of surprises. The queen didn't answer immediately, but the look in her eyes shifted, from curiosity to something far more dangerous, or perhaps, something far more intriguing. Johnny didn't flinch. He wasn't going to die today, not if he could help it. Look, I get it. You want to eat me. You've been thinking about it ever since you saw me crash. But here's the thing, you don't want to eat me. Trust me. Zara's predatory gaze narrowed, but she didn't move. Her clawed fingers twitched, itching to grab him, no doubt. He could feel the weight of her stare, as if she were dissecting him with her mind. You speak boldly for a meal, Zara said, her voice thick with amusement. What makes you think you can escape your fate? Johnny took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. He had to think quickly. In a world like this, where the rules were different, he needed to outwit her. Well, because eating me would be a huge mistake. How do I put this delicately? A bit of an acquired taste. Zara tilted her head, clearly intrigued but not buying it. An acquired taste? Yeah, Johnny said, pulling out all the stops. You know, humans are mostly made of stress hormones and caffeine at this point. Not exactly the best source of nourishment, right? Imagine biting into me, expecting a tender steak, and getting an existential crisis instead. She stared at him, processing. Explain, Zara demanded, clearly entertained. Johnny took a step forward, fully leaning into his ridiculous but desperate strategy. Look, if you eat me, you're basically consuming every bad decision I've ever made. You're gonna get a whole lot of regret with a side of disappointment. Plus, I've been on a diet that's mostly instant noodles and whatever's left in the fridge. Not exactly prime meat. If you're looking for something juicy, I'm more of a freezer-burnt TV dinner. Definitely not gourmet. Zara blinked. I find this unexpected. Are you attempting to persuade me with your self-deprecation? Persuade? Johnny laughed, a little too loudly, as he wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. No persuasion. Just giving you the facts. You're gonna need more than a good appetite to get through me. And frankly, if I'm gonna go down today, it's gonna be with dignity. I mean, I don't plan to be dinner, but I do have standards. Zara's expression softened for a moment, almost imperceptibly. So you suggest I don't eat you, but instead do what? Johnny could barely contain his grin. This was the moment. He'd hit his stride, and if he played his cards right, he might just convince her. Well, he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a low, teasing pitch. I'm suggesting a different kind of feast. He flashed his most confident smile, hoping it didn't look too forced. You know, we humans, we have these things called pleasures. And let me tell you, I'm an expert in those. He waggled his eyebrows, completely aware of how ridiculous he looked but doing it anyway. Zara didn't blink. Instead, she eyed him with growing curiosity. Pleasures? She asked, clearly not understanding but clearly intrigued by the concept. Johnny, sensing an opening, pressed on. You know, the kind of indulgence that's not about eating, but experiencing. I could teach you. Humans are really good at certain things that make you forget your hunger, in ways you won't find in any meal. Her eyes glinted with amusement, but there was something in her gaze that wasn't just condescending anymore. I am the queen of this world. No one has ever dared to offer me something so absurd. You expect me to learn from you, human? Johnny leaned in closer, making sure she could hear every word. I do. But listen, if you're gonna consume anything about me, it might as well be my experience. Trust me, you'll get more satisfaction out of it than anything you've ever tasted. Zara didn't move. She didn't even blink. Her expression was unreadable for a moment, and Johnny held his breath. Had he pushed too far? Was this where she'd just snap his neck for his insolence? Then, to his shock, she chuckled, low and smooth, like velvet. You are certainly bold, human. I've encountered many who trembled at the thought of meeting me, yet here you stand, offering me delicacies of a different sort. Tell me, what exactly would these pleasures entail? Johnny smirked, confident now that he made it past the first hurdle. Oh, well, to start, you could just relax. Maybe, let me show you a human way of being entertained. We don't always need to be on edge or fighting for survival. You'd be surprised how good you can feel when you stop thinking about the next meal, and focus on the one thing you never expected to taste, fun. Zara studied him for a long moment. He could feel the weight of her stare, her predatory instincts not dulled by the flirtation but curious. This was new territory for her, and Johnny was taking full advantage. Fun, she repeated, her voice a mix of amusement and genuine interest. And you believe I would find this fun in you? Oh, absolutely, Johnny said, stepping back with a playful grin. But don't take my word for it. You'll just have to experience it for yourself. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I promise I'm more entertaining than a plate of human fillet. Zara studied him for a long time, her gaze flicking over him with curiosity, before finally leaning in slightly. I will consider your offer, human. But be warned, you have much to prove. Johnny's heart raced. This was his chance. The game had shifted, and he wasn't about to let it slip through his fingers. Prove? Honey, I'm practically built for proving. Just let me know when you're ready for the next course. With that, the tension between them finally broke, and Johnny could almost feel the invisible line of danger shift into something different. Something he could handle. Johnny could see the gears turning in Zara's mind. Her eyes were still locked on him, but now there was a flicker of curiosity. Are you telling me, she began slowly, that I should not eat you because you are bad meat? Johnny grinned, wiping the sweat from his brow. This was his moment. He had to lean into the absurdity of it all. Exactly. I mean, think about it. You're a queen, right? You've got taste. You wouldn't settle for some bottom-shelf human, would you? Zara's posture stiffened slightly, as if the idea of being insulted had just reached her. Johnny quickly pressed on. Look, I've been to a lot of different planets, met a lot of different species, and let me tell you, they all want the same thing. They want a challenge. If you just eat me right now, you're missing out on the real fun. Challenge? Zara asked, arching a brow. You expect me to spare you for a challenge? Johnny nodded enthusiastically, taking a step closer, his voice lowering into a more seductive tone. Absolutely. You're a queen. You can't just be satisfied with any meal. You want something memorable. There was a dangerous glint in Zara's eyes, but it wasn't the kind that screamed, I'm going to eat you now. It was the kind that said, I'm considering something else. Johnny knew he had her attention. So tell me, Zara purred, clearly toying with him now. What exactly would you suggest, human? How can you be memorable? Johnny took a breath. This was it. Time to push all his chips in. You need to experience the true human way. The way we do things. The fun part. We're not about to be devoured and disappear into the void. No. We're about connection, sensation, and… He shot her a smirk. Pleasure. Zara's eyes flashed, her lips curling into a smile that was equal parts intrigued and dangerous. Pleasure? She repeated. And you think you can offer me this pleasure? Oh, yeah, Johnny said, stepping closer, speaking in a lower, more confident tone. I'm not just any snack. I'm an experience. You could eat me, sure, but wouldn't you rather enjoy me? Zara laughed softly, the sound low and dangerous. You are bold. I'll give you that. Johnny, sensing the moment, turned it up a notch. Bold? No, Zara. I'm a master of this. Let me show you how humans take the time to savor things, not just consume them mindlessly. You'll be begging to keep me around. Zara eyed him for a long moment, her lips twitching. Begging? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. You think you can make me beg? Johnny winked. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I could. There was a long, charged silence. Johnny had pushed the limit now, but he knew the only way out of this alive, hell, the only way to make this work, was to ride the wave of tension. And just when he thought she might finally snap and turn him into dinner, Zara's gaze softened slightly. She took a step back, her posture shifting into something more thoughtful, less hungry. Very well, human, Zara said, her voice now laced with amusement. You've intrigued me. Show me what it is that makes you worth more than a quick snack. Johnny couldn't believe his luck. He was alive, still standing, and more importantly, he was talking his way out of being eaten. But more than that, he could tell something had shifted in her. She wasn't seeing him as prey anymore. He'd done it. He'd gotten her attention, and now, he was about to play the long game. Well, Zara, Johnny said, flashing a grin. Get ready for the ride of your life. We humans know how to take things slow and savor the moment. Zara studied him for a moment longer, and then, surprisingly, her lips curled into a smirk. Then show me what you can do, human. But remember, if I find this experience lacking, you'll regret it. Johnny's grin widened. Trust me, you won't regret this. And who knows? You might even come to like the idea of keeping me around, for dessert. And with that, the stakes of the game changed completely. Johnny hadn't just avoided becoming an alien meal, he had somehow turned the situation into a challenge, one that would involve all the humor, charm, and seduction a human could muster. But now, it wasn't just about survival. It was about proving to Zara that humans were far more than what she had thought. We weren't just food. We were an experience she couldn't get enough of.